Hey, welcome everyone. We're really happy to have you here at the Technical Assistance Getting Help with Your Proposal session at this Best Starts for Kids open house. Thanks for coming to the open house. I'm Georgie Nickram and I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Technical Assistance and Capacity Building Program Manager here at Best Starts for Kids. And co-hosting with me today is Sarah J. Sanford.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah J. I'm an epidemiologist at the health department and a member of the Best Starts for Kids data and evaluation team.
So you should leave this session completely understanding what Best Starts for Kids technical assistance is and how to get technical assistance if your organization needs it, and some tips on finding data that will support your proposal so that your proposal can be as successful as possible. So first, I'm going to just start off and define technical assistance, or TA for short. We call it TA a lot. As we define it here at Best Starts, it's all about what happens before we give awards, and it's help with the funding proposal. So TA providers that BSK has contracted with will support community-based organizations in applying for Best Starts for Kids funds. We've contracted with experienced and equity-focused consultants to be our TA providers, and they'll provide free, culturally responsive assistance for applicants to support their proposal development and submission of BSK grant applications. There is multilingual support available with TA. So here are a few examples of TA. It can come in many forms depending on the needs of your organization. But some examples is that the TA providers can help you determine if your organization is a good fit for a particular RFP. They can help you think through your suitability for it so that you don't put a lot of time into an application process that might not be right for you. They can help guide you through the logistics of the application process. For example, they can help ensure that you have all the required pieces for that application to make sure it's complete. Or they could help you navigate King County's online grant application system, which is called Zoom Grants. And the TA provider can also help you tell your story in a clear way. They can help you authentically share your stories of success and impact. TA providers can also help you find data to make your story compelling. Sarah J is going to be talking a lot more about that in a few minutes. They can also help you make sure that you're fully answering the questions on the application. They can review your drafts. And then the last thing I want to say is, while TA providers can give you support in many different ways, for example, they could help edit and review your drafts, they're not grant writing for you. They can't sit down and write the application for you. TA is not grant writing. So why are we providing TA? Well, Best Starts for Kids strives to partner with organizations that serve and are led by their own communities. We know that community-led organizations are best positioned to design programs that will have positive impacts on children, youth, and families in their communities. Best Starts recognizes that many organizations have historically experienced barriers to accessing funding opportunities from government agencies, such as King County. So to address this, Best Starts provides TA to remove as many linguistic, cultural, and procedural barriers that we can that might prevent qualified organizations from seeking Best Starts for Kids funding. So as this screen shows, TA is a tool to break down barriers to receive county funding. It's a step toward equity in the application process. And TA is there to support organizations that may not have grant writers on staff or funding to hire a grant writer. But let's talk real quick about who's eligible to get TA. Any community-led organization interested in applying for Best Starts funding is eligible for technical assistance. But if you work at a larger, more highly resourced nonprofit that has paid grant writers on staff or a full development team, TA is not really meant for organizations like that. Our focus is on providing resources and strengthening the assets and capabilities of smaller community-based organizations so that they can effectively and equitably apply for Best Starts for Kids funding. If larger organizations have questions about the RFP, it's certainly fine to consult with a TA consultant funded by Best Starts for Kids. They will help you, but they might prioritize their time to be focused more on the smaller community-based organizations. And they might tell you that, like, I might not have too much time. They might be able to offer some simple help if your organization is large and highly resourced. If you're a highly resourced organization, you might actually get the answers you were looking for from the procurement manager at King County who released the RFP, and their email address is in the RFP. You also might get answers from the frequently asked questions document, or FAQ. I'm going to talk about the FAQ more very soon. Okay, so this is the nitty-gritty. How can you access technical assistance? If you're interested in getting TA, that is so great. We want to give it to you. We have published the names and email addresses of the TA consultants on the BSK blog. And I think Sarah J is going to put the blog post, okay, good, in the link, the blog post link in the chat right now. So you can go there and you'll find a little description of each of the consultants that we're contracting with, and then their email address is at the bottom of their description, and you email that person directly. So when you're ready to apply for an RFP, you can contact them directly through email. Sometimes at the end of RFPs, the King County will actually put a list of the TA providers, so you might find it there as well. But this blog post is really the best way. So you'll read the bio or description of the TA consultants, choose the one who seems like they'd be a good fit for your organization, and then reach out early in the process. There's usually 4 to 6 weeks open time when the opportunity gets released. And the earlier you can reach out to your TA provider, the better, because sometimes they do get full. You contact that provider by email usually, sometimes by phone, that's fine too. And then you should give that TA consultant 24 hours to respond before reaching out to another provider. If for example, they're not calling you back and you feel like you need to get going again, please give them 24 hours to respond, because they may not get your email immediately. And then if you want to reach out to a different provider because you haven't heard back from the first, you can certainly do that. But please be sure to work with only one provider at a time, and just be transparent about what in your communications. So the provider will schedule a time to meet and talk with you. And then if that first TA consultant that you've reached out to doesn't end up seeming like they're a good fit with your organization, you can let that provider know and then reach out to a new one. Just be sure to tell the first TA consultant that you'd like to end your engagement with them before moving on to a new consultant.
Georgie?
Yeah.
Just wanted to let you know that interpreter requests that you go a little bit more slowly.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so this slide shows the blog post that I was referring to, just so you know what it looks like. Okay, I mentioned the frequently asked questions document. This is a document that the program managers for each grant opportunity, each RFP that is going to be released, creates. So when questions come in from applicants, we need to make sure that that question is not just answered to that particular person, but that everyone in the community has access to the answer from King County. So program managers create an FAQ document, and then they post it in Zoom grants after they've gathered a number of questions. They'll gather the questions, answer them on paper, and then they'll publish the FAQ in the Zoom grants library, it's called. So for that opportunity, you'll go to the opportunity in Zoom grants, and in the library, you'll see the RFP document, and then you'll usually see the FAQ document as well, listed in the library. So this is a way that we ensure that everyone gets the same information. And we're publicly publishing it several times usually. As more questions come in, we'll publish it again with additional answers. So I just wanted to mention it because any questions you have, be sure to read the FAQ, and a lot of answers may be there. Okay. So I am going to pause here to answer any questions that might be bubbling up about technical assistance. Does anyone have a question that I can answer?
Please feel free to unmute yourself or type in the chat if you're more comfortable.
I can't see the chat, so if there is anything, Sarah J. Okay, great. There will be additional time at the end of this presentation to ask other questions. So if there aren't any questions, then let's keep going and we can talk about data. As I mentioned, TA providers can help you find and use data to your best advantage in your grant application. But it also would be great for you to know ahead of time where you can find this data. So here to tell you more about finding and using it is Sarah J. Sanford from Best Starts for Kids.
Thank you, Georgie. Could we go to the next slide? So Best Starts for Kids data team has these 3 values: partnership, collaboration, and accessibility that we hope you will see reflected in our work together from the proposal stage all the way through evaluation work if you are funded. Today, I'll be sharing some tips to think about how you may want to include data in a Best Starts for Kids proposal, including where you can find it. Next slide. There's a lot of data out there, and I'll be talking a little bit about some places to look. But before you go there, we encourage you to think first about what's the story that you want to tell with your proposal. What makes your community, your program, or your organization a great fit for the goals that the RFP is trying to accomplish? What's unique and powerful about you? When you approach your proposal like a story, it can make it be much more easy to understand for reviewers, and it can help you decide what kind of information to include. So if you have that story in mind, what kind of information would help make it convincing or compelling to folks who will be reviewing it? I do recommend that you read the RFP carefully. It will tell you exactly what reviewers are looking for and the criteria that they will use to rate proposals. So you may see criteria related to equity or disparity issues. You might see a criteria related to filling a service gap or meeting community needs. And these are all places where it's possible that data could be helpful. But you will not see a criteria that simply asks whether your proposal included any data. So use it where it helps you to tell your story and make your case. You don't need to throw it in there just for its own sake. Next slide. When we think about data, Numbers are what comes to mind first for many folks, but Best Starts for Kids values many different kinds of data, including community-generated data. So again, think back to what kind of story that you want to tell with your proposal, what the criteria in the RFP are, and what could help really respond to those criteria and tell your story. It could be numbers. It could also be more qualitative data like stories, quotes, or pictures. So just remember that if you do use anything from participants, clients, or community members in your program, be sure to share their stories in the ways that they consent to and are comfortable with, and remember to respect their confidentiality. But think broadly and creatively about what kind of data you could be using. This slide shows some data resources from King County that are available to you if you would like to use them. Again, it's not required. You won't get extra points, but it could be a helpful starting place if you want to find some data. One is the Best Starts for Kids indicators. This is data specifically about the well-being of children, youth, and families in King County that's designed to be relevant for Best Starts for Kids programs. So that could be a good starting point. We also have other resources though, if you don't find what you're looking for there. Communities Count is a community resource that has data on a bunch of different topics, as well as links out to data that King County ourselves may not have, but that others do. So if you're working on a program with school-aged children, you can get even more education data. You can find links to that kind of stuff in Communities Count. It also has a written description of the data that we share. So if you like to think of yourself perhaps more as a word person than a numbers person, Communities Count might be a good starting place. And finally, we have community health indicators, and that's just tons and tons of data about health and well-being in King County. And if you don't find what you're looking for in the first places, you can find it there. We will be sharing out these slides so that you can click through these links if you would like to do so. I can add them to the chat in a few minutes as well. Now, we know there's a lot of limitations to the data that we do have, and sometimes you might not find what you're looking for, whether it's a specific topic or more specific community, like a smaller racial or ethnic community or language community in the data that we have. And so keep in mind that you can find other sources, such as from state and national data sources or from your own organization. Often, you know your community the best, and you might find that your own resources help you tell your story the best. So to kind of sum up, Best Starts for Kids values lots of different kinds of data, numbers and stories. The data sources that we are sharing here, and you might find links in an RFP as well. We're sharing those to help eliminate any extra work digging around for possible data sources on your side, not to dictate what you need to use. It's totally optional. And as Georgie mentioned, this is something that a technical assistance provider can totally help with as well. This slide shows the Best Starts for Kids indicators dashboard. That's one of the data sources that I just mentioned. And sometimes people like to see a quick little demonstration of how to navigate these dashboards. Some people find them pretty easy to use. Some people don't really find them very intuitive. So please let me know if you'd like to see that during the Q&A. And I'll give you a little tour of the Best Starts for Kids indicators so that if you do want to explore that data, hopefully it will be familiar to you. Next slide. Finally, again, technical assistance can help you figure out, find data, figure out if you need or want to use data in your application. They know all about our data resources at King County as well as others. Another thing to keep in mind for your proposal is that an evaluation plan is not required in your proposal. Best Starts for Kids will partner with funded organizations to develop one once you are awarded funding. So you don't need to worry about making an evaluation plan in your proposal. But you should express willingness to participate in data reporting and think about resources that you might need for this. So often that's staff time. Sometimes people want to improve their equipment or software to help with that kind of thing. And that's also an area where technical assistance can help you figure that out, making sure that your budget especially includes the resources that you will need to participate in evaluation if you are funded. So that brings us to the end of our formal content. Georgie and I would love to hear any questions that you have. And I'm also more than happy to do a little demonstration of our Best Starts for Kids data dashboard as well, if anyone would find that helpful. Feel free to come off mute or type in the chat if you have a question. I'll also put some links in the chat here in case anybody wants to take a look.
All right, thanks for putting those links to the places you can find data that can support your narrative. There are also probably a lot of other great suggestions, and if anyone has any that they want to share now with the group, we would really welcome those. Other places where you may have found great data that can support people's applications for grant opportunities. Well, it's been really good to have you here today. And if you do have any follow-up questions, I'm going to put my email address in the chat. You can feel free to follow up with me about any TA questions. Thank you so much for being here. Sorry, Sarah J, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say I've added mine as well. We hope that if you do decide to put in a proposal for Best Starts for Kids funding, that you find the technical assistance opportunity and the data resources that we're sharing helpful. And we'd love to hear from you if you have any questions about the presentation today.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.